We'll continue with the reaction, getting some legal analysis. So with legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, the calls are mounting, but of course, mixed reaction to whether or not the NPA is slowly improving or perhaps working backwards under Advocate Batohi's leadership. What is your take?
Good evening to you, and also good evening to our viewers. I think you have to be looked at it holistically. We have to understand one thing. There's no individual that walks into court and says, I'm going to work myself into prison. They get to prison with the assistance of the NPA, who is the prosecutor who's going to read the docket, be able to argue persuasively to the judge, and the judge, the presiding officer, will then make that ruling. So when you want to assess whether the NPA is working optimally or not, we must look at it within that particular context. Of course, with that being said, they say in Zulu, there's no meaning that there are going to be a few problems here and there. And it's unfortunate for the NPA. This is one of those high-profile cases, which then the focus is going to be, are you be able to do your job in a positive manner? Are you able to satisfy the interests of the victims that are there? And as it says, there's no victim whose case is not as important, because every single person who walks into the offices of the NPA is hoping to get justice. And when they don't get that, then certainly we have to ask these questions that we are asking now. But if we assess it on a fair assessment, based on the volume of work, the type of legislation that we have, and the hardships that are there, I might say that the NPA is doing a good job, but could be better.
I mean, I ask you that based on the shocking acquittal of Nigerian televangelist Timothy Omotoso, Advocate Batohi's leadership coming under scrutiny, multiple prosecutors in that matter mishandling the case over 8 years, demonstrating the NPA's dysfunction.
But then it must also be looked at within the context of saying that during those 8 years, there are 8 years in which it was Mr. Omotoso itself has taken that particular case on appeal. So it's not the NPA or that was not doing its job or maybe resting and not doing anything, but it was the operation of law as we know it. Where we should falter them, by the way, it's in the prosecution of the matter, the manner in which it has been done, the manner in which evidence has been led in court, especially if you're going to have a judge who's going to say the manner in which the NPA has handled themselves leaves little to be desired. Then definitely you should have to look at those ones and say, how do we prevent this thing from ever happening again? Is it the element of training our prosecutors so that they are well equipped in terms of the type of matters that they face? Or is a matter of making the witnesses understand what they are faced with? You are only as good in court as the evidence that you have. So if the investigating officers have not done that much of a good job, it then means you're still going to have a problem when you get into court, because you cannot manufacture evidence. You deal with the evidence that you have at hand. So it's one hand speaking to the other, or the other stakeholders that are relevant in this particular matter. They must all come into one room and say, we need to find a common solution. We have different elements and different things that you have to do so that we have to get to the common solution that we are looking for. But at the end of the day, let's all work together.
Just before you, I was speaking to Professor Dirk Kotza, and he was saying that, Batohi, in her 6 years, has been bombarded with a number of tasks, the courts overloaded with cases, but with not enough state prosecutors to specialize in that cases. I mean, that in itself paints a much broader picture.
Yes, it does. But again, you, as a leader, you're the one that sounds the alarm to say, I need more resources so that I'm able to prosecute these cases. Let's make an example of state capture cases. At one particular point in time, it was reported that there was a prosecutor or persons from the NPA who was sitting and listening to the zonal commission while it was taking place. One would have expected that if there are any issues which are going to be found, they're going to be raised back then to say, I need resources so that I'm able to prosecute these crimes. There's an element of investigations and the technicalities which are required. If I have those, that I can be able to, then I can be able to prosecute them effectively. But another question, another school of thought would say, maybe it is within that zonal commission in which the NPA was supposed to come on board to be asked a simple question. Have there ever been a point in time in which you have not been able to prosecute matters, especially of this nature, what's causing these delays? Because if you look at the asbestos case, for example, it has been there for a number of years, but nothing was being done, as well as other matters that had been reported either through the AG, anonymous tip-offs, or they were well-known or reported on in the media, but there are no actions that had been taken. So if you want to find the nub of what is causing those delays to be there, in those cases that would regard as high profile, call the NPA so that when the judgment is issued, the issues and the shortcomings that they have, either due to resources or lack of skills, are well known. The other part, they are a public institution. If they feel that there are other resources that can be obtained privately, they can go through the SAM processes, bring in the relevant individuals, and be able to prosecute those cases.
With no action on some of those cases that you make mention of, what do such instances then do for public trust in the NPA and the broader criminal justice system?
It does dent them, because it creates the impression that those that have money and resources can get away with creating crime and not being punished. It also creates an instance where the NPA is regarded as targeting certain individuals, especially those that cannot afford to pay those high legal costs for highly skilled legal practitioners. When at the end of the day, the NPA should be representing anyone without any differentiation whether the person has money or not. So it does create an impression of a selective prosecution that is taking place, and people that are going to be targeted instead of normal prosecutions that have been taking place. So a person who's sitting at home may say, why do I even go through this whole process when I know that my matter is not going to be taken as important? So there's no gain or no benefit which I'm going to gain. I'd rather keep quiet. This is a painful thought to have, especially in those gender-based violence cases, in those sexual offences cases, which are very prevalent, and people are really reluctant to come out because they know that the stigma which is going to follow them is going to be large.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening, wrapping up that conversation with legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala.